like to first thank you for joining me live on the call. For those who are new to this call, I wanted to just let you know that I'll be recording this so you can listen to it afterwards. We tend to have a lot of people listen to it afterwards and follow up with questions, but did want to just set the context for that. The call here is with myself, Victoria Repka Geller. I'll be going over ways to take power over your career through this Career Boost call. A couple things before we get started. Just want to let you know that yes, this is going to be video taped. You don't have to actually share your name. You can just ask questions. You don't have to be on video. Just make sure that you aren't active on video if you don't want to be seen. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them through the chat, which is functioning, and I will make sure to answer those. But I hope you'll participate live on the call. We had about 50 people sign up, and like I said, most people tend to listen to the recording afterwards, so hopefully we'll get a good chat going afterwards, because I do save time at the end to make sure that I can answer your personal questions around your career. Just go a little bit over the context of what we'll cover. One, for those that are new to the call, this call will be about an hour or less. I'm going to go over like who I am, my credentials, my mission, the content of this Career Boost calls. I'll give you the number one tool for making powerful decisions and overcoming career stagnation. So hopefully that is of interest for all of you. At the end, as I mentioned, I'll always leave open QA, so you can be regarding the topic that we're talking about right now, or it can be anything regarding your career. Feel free to ask any questions. Also, at the end, I'll remind you, but I can share at the very beginning for those that want to work with me directly. Anyone that participates on the call and mentions the call can get a free half-hour discovery call with me. You can reach out to loamlife.com. That is LOAMLIFE.com is my website. You can sign up there, or you can send an email personally to my assistant at info@loamlife.com, and they'll get you set up again for a free discovery call. And I just actually got a great testimonial for one of the discovery calls I just did with someone who shared that, yes, they felt my coaching was spot on, and with the first few minutes that I revealed a lot of fundamental questions that they weren't, that were able to help them really solidify where they want to go with their career and ask for a potential employer. So I give a lot of great information and free in the discovery call, so please do sign up for those that are participating in this call. So just to share who I am and my mission, I always start with my point of difference. This is really important for anyone who is participating on these calls. I do tend to share a lot of marketing terms so that you can use them to help you with your careers. But the point of difference that I have specifically, this point of difference, just the definition of it, is really what's unique to your competitive set. There's a lot of coaches out there, and I appreciate you spending time with me on the call. But whether you're competing with your own business or you're actually in a job, your competitive set, your point of difference distinguishes you from that. So you want to make sure you're just distinguishing yourself, make yourself stand out, so it'll help you be successful. So personally, my point of difference, and I share an example, I always try to role model things so you can start thinking about how yours work as well. I'm a chief marketing officer at a boutique agency here in Manhattan. I have 18 years plus real life work experience, and I bring that to my mentoring and my coaching practice, which is one of the reasons why I tend to share a lot of marketing terms. I am credentialed at NYU, and I'm also internationally recognized through the ICF as an international career transformation strategist. And I have an educated perspective, I think also part of my point of difference. I developed my proprietary approach through my NYU studies and through my marketing, because I get exposed to a lot of different concepts in neuro and behavioral science to help people take power over their career. That is what I want everyone to really have an opportunity to take. That's why you're on the call. We spend most of our times at work. There's a blur of personal and professional, and the opportunity to really take power, to feel that you're in control, is something that I really desire to help everyone stand out with. I've worked with clients all over the world, and lately it's been a lot of Russians, but I've worked with people in Germany, Hong Kong, and I work all over the US. But my commitment to everyone is to really help executives, entrepreneurs, and professionals find and navigate and succeed in their career paths. And I do that by helping them strategize and make their work more rewarding and enjoyable and hopefully profitable. That's a really key point for me, is making sure that you're getting paid what you're worth, and really taking them to the place of, again, taking power over your career and your business. So the content for this call is going to be about that number one tool for making a powerful decision, overcoming career stagnation. And it really comes down to a couple things, and I'm going to give you examples, case studies, and hopefully things will actually help you in your real life and career. So as my clients know, I always like to start with key questions. I don't really like to start with answers. I like to start with questions that really get you thinking and provoking thought. So some of the questions that you need to be thinking about yourself, if you're kind of feeling you're stuck in a career, and not really moving forward and really getting to a place of getting past that career stagnation and finding out what that tool is that's going to help you, really think about that. Have you ever felt stuck, almost paralyzed, like you were in a no-win situation? Did you feel like you're living the definition of insanity, where the same, part of my language, I guess not too strong, but crap keeps happening again and again? You meet the same jerk bosses, you're passed over promotions. Do you feel you just can't trust anyone? And worse, you feel like you can't trust yourself? That's a really important distinction that I like to share about this, is that, it's not just about you can't trust others, but can you trust yourself? Are you trusting your choices? And are you tending to put more stock in others and opinions than in your own? This tool really help you get back to that really root of trusting yourself. So this is all revolves around my 4th step of my program. There are 5 steps that I take my clients through. This 4th step is really about trusting yourself, trusting your choices, and learning eventually to trust others by really focusing on your choices. And choice is really important to me. You'll see it in my creative and my content on social, in Facebook, in Instagram, in any of my work. I talk about daily choice with my clients at all. We really try to get focused in on, like, what are you going to focus in to really move your career forward. So that number one tool to help you get through career stagnation is around making a daily choice. And that daily choice isn't just a one and done. It's a choice that you come back to every single time to make sure that you are really being true to yourself and moving yourself forward and being focused. Focus is one of the biggest problems I see that my clients have. And being discerning with your choices and being discerning with yourself about what you truly want. So I have been there, and I want to share a little bit about my own personal story. I've really had to embrace my own getting in my own way with my career. And I was the one that I knew eventually had to really take charge and had to take responsibility for my choices. So that daily choice came out of that. I was in a couple of jobs. I really felt like I wasn't producing. I was getting feedback that I wasn't producing, but it wasn't incongruous with actually all the content that I was doing, the expertise I brought to it. And I had to really sit down and figure out, like, how do I pull apart the area that I'm making myself wrong about, what are they true, and maybe what I'm not bringing to the table, and then really discerning that. So I really got into a daily choice of, like, really honing in on, like, how do I set a choiceful intention to change my mindset and my behavior to make sure that I really learn how to take power over my career, because I felt like my career was being taken out of my hands. And I know a lot of clients have felt that all of a sudden, like, they thought they were in control, they thought they were in charge, and then the career was taken out of their hands. So this daily choice that I'm going to be sharing with you is really around mindset and behavior. And for those of you that may not be familiar with this, mindset is really around this is thinking, the thought process, the cognitive waves that I need to change to make sure that I'm really being very choiceful in my thinking to move me forward. And then also, what behavior do I need to put in place? Because it's not one or the other. I need to do the thinking, the cognitive. I need to change the behavior. That's another step. And then actually take action. So that cognitive behavior is a very much part of, like, how I coach. And where you start with doing that is really asking yourself the hard questions. For me, as I mentioned, I was looking at a place where I wasn't trusting myself. I was giving a lot of power away to my bosses, a lot of power away to just even subordinates, where I thought, well, maybe they have the right answer. My boss must know the right answer, instead of just trusting myself And I need to make a really strong decision to rewire my mind to like really start trusting myself first. And I know that I had talked about this in a recent blog post, and there was a lot of people that truly understood and embraced the fact that, like, yeah, if you start losing your ability to really focus in and trust yourself, that can lead to career derailment as well. So the way that I really took back control, that I'm going to start sharing some of these tools with you, is just focusing on like, it's important to make that daily choice. And I really wanted to look at like how I could take that back. And the way that you do that is making a conscious effort to act accordingly. It's helpful from a practical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, from a plain powerful and planning standpoint. Like, these are the decisions I'm going to make, and then how I'm going to make myself move forward. And you remind yourself day in and day out of what that grand vision is, that daily choice. My choice was trusting myself. And I know that sounds, well, it might sound like that it might be odd that like I wouldn't trust myself. But if you find yourself, and a lot of people do say that they get to a place where like, well, I think my boss is right. And I just had to really come back to the firm point that no, I know what's best for where, how I'm going to move forward. So here's the steps to help you take and really hone in on that daily choice, because I know that's exactly what you're kind of looking for here. You know, you don't want to muddle through your days. No one in a career rut ever busted out, by the way, by doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a difference. That's called the definition of insanity, and that's one thing that bothers me all the time. You've got to consciously decide and make those choiceful intentions to make a difference in a choice. So how I tell my clients to approach their daily choices, and how I approach the choices for myself, and this is what got me to a really confident place of to being on probation, to actually then finding that job, and now chief marketing officer in Manhattan, and also starting my career coaching business. There was a lot of breakthrough through that. And some of them were just so simple. So one is to do some prep, really get into like, what are you trying to be very choiceful about? It could be your confidence, it could be trust, it could be getting that next job. It could be, you know, mindset issues, it could be actually behavioral issues, it could be very tactical issues, but being very clear. And so what I did, and I recommend, is getting yourself some Post-it notes in 3 colors. I use blue, yellow, and pink. I jot down on the blue ones negative behaviors, mindset thoughts that are getting in my way. So I start seeing, like, starting to become more conscious. That was my daily choice of like, why am I not trusting myself? I'm not conscious of that. I'm actually giving my power away. And I'd write down things to make sure that when if it was a negative thought and I was now conscious of it, I'd write that down, put it to the side. And then eventually, as I realized I wasn't doing anymore, I shred it. Some people do burning ceremonies. I actually shred things. I find it very cathartic to just shred stuff when I'm done with it. On the yellow ones, I'd list the actions that I promised myself I'll take that would get me to the choice of like trusting myself. It could be I was sitting down with myself, writing out, I was going to like take a course. Things that would actually make me feel more confident in my ability. Some of it was actually just more mindset of behavior of like, I'm not going to ask my boss for the direction. I'm going to do the best job I can. I'm going to hand it off. And if they change it, my positive action was going to be not to care about it. And that was easier said than done. It took me a bit, but I finally got to it. On the pink ones, I would write the goals I want to realize, my desires. So I've got the blue ones, getting rid of the negative stuff. The yellow ones were the actions I wanted to take and I was specifically going to do. And the yellow ones were desires of where I wanted to go, where I really wanted my goal of like getting a new job, which I eventually did, how to go about it, and also just finding myself more comfortable in my role. Another way of like really getting into your daily choices is start each day with a question. When I work with my client, I might text her in the morning and ask her, when you wake up today, ask yourself the question, what kind of life do you want to live? Now that's a broad, very broad question, but sometimes it's just that important to really think about where that key question, I call them, is going to make you want to move forward. So what kind of life do you want to live? And I had her really be honest with herself because she was having trouble really figuring out what direction she wanted to go. Did she want to stay in the job she was? Did she want to go to a new job? And then using the Post-it note, she was able to really get into honing on like, this is where I want to go. So through that question of where do I want to go, she'd write on the negative things of like what I don't like about my current job, where I don't like the negative thoughts about where maybe I could be concerned about taking a new job. using those behaviors, the actions she was going to take, talking to a couple people about where she could maybe go with her career, and the desires, like, she eventually wanted to retire at age 50. What goals would take that actions would take to get there? Like, would she have to stay in her current role because she started a new business? And it really helped her guide her through that process. One thing else that helps beyond just like stating your question, doing the Post-it notes, is really cross-checking your responses. An area that I work with my clients on is really helping them understand, like, it's going to sound a little ethereal, and but like, who are your board of directors in your life? Having really a live board of directors, your friends that you can bounce things off of, who's going to be your tribe to say, hey, you really need to think about this differently, but also, like, who's making the decisions? It's that voice in your head that's making decisions, like, you always mess up, you're always wrong, there's a voice of caution, and we name those. Yeah. I just got that positive. Yes, I get it. Yeah, you really, like, you're siding on that voice of caution. That's not making you break out of your career because you've gotten so conservative and your confidence might be down. So really understanding, like, checking in with yourself, like, is this my most positive voice? Is this my most positive role that could really actually help me move forward? Or is it a more negative voice that's causing me to not really move forward in my career stagnation? And then another area to help really in, like, your daily choice, that really important tool is to catch yourself. I tell my clients that if I find themselves slipping into negative thoughts, again, get out those blue Post-it notes. Like, we're trying to understand what's causing the career stagnation, this daily choice of really unfolding who you are, what's causing that stagnation, et cetera, can be really helpful. And again, you can get an accountability partner if you can't just do it by yourself, with someone, either a coach or a friend, that can really help you start noticing where those behaviors aren't really helping yourself. But in the end, what you really need to do is trust yourself and embrace your decision. You can always change course later on if you need to, but that trust comes back to, I'm making a choice. I've decided this choice is going to be getting a job or staying at my current job, and I'm going to behave this way, and then making sure that it's going to make you happy. So those couple of steps were ways to really get at your daily choice, and now I want to share a couple of case studies that can kind of bring this a little bit more to light. But before I do, I just wanted to see if there were any questions. And you can chat, take yourself off mute, or just listen. I wanted to see if there was anything there. Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to share was a case study to be more specific. I had a client who had been at a job for about 10 years, and they were really afraid to leave. So what I did and worked with her on was really getting really crystal clear on her daily choice of moving away from that role. So I wrote her, and she would ask herself that question, that one I already shared with you a little bit about, like, when you wake up today, and I think this is one of the most important questions any of us can ask ourselves, like, when you wake up today, make this daily choice. Really understand what kind of life do you want to live, and be honest with yourself. It's sometimes hard to be honest with ourselves. We think that we have to perform a certain way, do a certain thing, but really be honest with yourself. And then I want you to think about, as you think about what kind of life you want to live, 3 tenets, and I share this with all my clients. These tenets are fit, challenge, money, and security in regards to your profession. So what kind of life do I want to live? What's the challenge that I want in my life? This can be personal too, but professional we're going to focus in on. And asking yourself, is the current job your right challenge for you? Is the job the right for money and security, whether you're in a job or looking at a job, but she was currently in a job? Is it the right money and security? And then also, is it the right fit? A lot of people don't think about the fit. They think about the money, security is good, the challenge seems good, but the fit is off. And that can make things really worse. If you're not happy with your coworkers, you're not happy with your situation, it can be really difficult. So making sure also along the way that you don't make yourself wrong for these answers. Just being really honest with yourself, because it's your life. Then going into asking yourself the first question of what kind of life do I want to live? And that's a great question to get at your daily choice, and breaking it around those 3 components: fit, challenge, money, and security. Then the question you can ask, your help you honing in on your daily choices, then ask yourself, what is the worst thing that could happen if I take this action? We've all got worst case scenarios. What we really want to move ourselves from is the worst case scenario to best case scenario. But in this one, I really want to focus in on, like, what is the worst thing that can happen? You don't like your current job. I just had a client, and I know she's listening on the call, who we worked really hard to get her the job that she wanted. She went to an agency. She hadn't been in an agency before. She really thought that was going to be the case. And you know what? She ended up hating it when she got there, but she stuck with it. She worked with me through it. And then she ended up getting even a better job. So even the worst case scenario of, like, I stay at my current role, or I go to a new job and I fail at it, there's going to be another opportunity. And it's keeping that going from going to the worst case, facing it, and then being like, but what could be the best case that could happen? She's now working at WeWork. And it was all because she left her other role. She was open to it. And then when she realized that she didn't want it anymore, she didn't make herself wrong. She just knew it wasn't a good fit. Again, coming back to those 3 points of fit, money, challenge, and really assessing what those are important. She wasn't a good fit, and the challenge wasn't enough to keep her there, and the money wasn't either, and she ended up in a better place. Then when you're looking at whether you're going to leave a role, you could really think about asking yourself, like, what's the worst case scenario if you stay in the job, or the worst case scenario if you leave the job? So that all ties together, but it's important to look at it both ways. And then I just really advocate that you sit with the answers and make a choice. Even if you decide, like, you're going to pursue it or you want to stay, making yourself right is really important. I have seen so many of those clients. Oh, when I see a question. I will come back to that question on the waiting between those points in just a second. I'll just finish this thought. In that you decide to pursue, really weighing yourself in, what if you end up going in the direction, what the best case scenario could be, you could always find another role. So the allocation between the fit, money, and security. So let me go to that. So I got a question regarding, like, how do you allocate weightings between those points? That's a really great question. So in the triangle, and I actually did a recording on this last year, but fit, challenge, money, and security is what I work with my clients with. When it comes to fit, challenge, money, and security, it's not an equal weighting. It could change depending on where you're at. If you are growing in your career, you might decide that money and security, money might be the most important thing. You need to make more money so you can live a life that doesn't cause you stress. That might actually counterbalance the fact of, like, I'm willing to kind of put up with a challenge that I'm not that excited about, and a fit that might be off. It's a triangle. You can't get everything a third, a third, a third. But when you look at it, it's really a personal decision. So for me, I tend to weigh more to money and security than to the challenge. The next one is that I weigh very heavily is fit. If I'm not in a place that I'm happy, I will be miserable. So even if the fit, the money and security is good, if the fit is off, then it could really be detrimental. So when you weigh them, using myself personally, my most important one, I would say, is actually fit. I know I just said money and security, but I actually changed that because I just took on a new role. I'm very happy in it. And the fit was what made it the most important. The money and security was a little bit less than where I was previously, but I wanted the fit to be most important. I weighed all those things out. So I was in a current role, it was much more money, but the fit was off and I was making me miserable, and I was willing to take that role to have a better fit. The challenge to me, in my career, I've been through so many challenges. So the challenge was the most enticing thing. So, if you're looking at where you are in your career, you might be building and decide, like, look, I'm willing to compromise a little bit on the fit because I really want the challenge and I want to keep getting money and security and I want to challenge myself. I actually was just talking to someone over the weekend coaching them, and one thing they brought up was like they really still want that challenge. They really want that empowerment. They want to go that next level. So you might compromise on some things. The point being is you can't have all three equally weighted. It's very rare to have that. You need to decide what's most important based on like where you are in life. You might be married and have kids, and really the most important thing is actually that security. You want to be at a company, so startup may not be the best place for you. You want better benefits, different things. So you do tend to have a lead, and the other ones are less. But you really want to make sure that you're truly being honest with yourself. Because if money and security is the most important thing, and you take a startup job where the fit is like you're a more laid back person and everyone else is more intense, you're going to be miserable, and that money isn't going to outweigh that. Did that answer your question? Or can I elaborate a little bit more? And if you want me specifically after the end of this, you can ask. Okay, got it. Would love to walk you through that. So when you're looking at that, and that was a great question, when you're looking at money, security, also against fit and challenge, you need to really sit and sit with the answers and then make a choice. Exactly what we're kind of referring to. You may have decided that, the possibility is you can only decide to take one direction, but know that you can always reverse your decision. It came up in a coaching call even today, earlier today, when someone was asking me, like, I may not go back to my job. They've been on maternity leave. They may not go back to their job. How's that going to look on my resume? First, yes, it tends to be easier to find a job when you're currently working. But the most important thing is if you're not happy in your current role and you don't want to go back, that can make all sorts of repercussions where you won't be very happy. And that can actually project out. So, weighing that as well. But when you're looking at your career, people don't stay at jobs very long anymore. It's becoming a much more fast cycle. It is expected that you could be at a job, leave a job, be there a year and a half. It might not be a good fit. There's ways to position it. It's one of my favorite tools that I work with my clients. How do you script this? How do you create your story? How do you script it for the change? Because everything is plausible. I've been out of work, got laid off. I was out of work for 3 months and really talked about it like it was a conscious decision. I actually told them to lay me off because it wasn't a good fit, and just said that I needed a break. There's a lot more of that you can actually decide that you're going to just do what's right for you, and the way you position it is like, I'm now ready to get back in there and really focus in. So you really want to make sure when you're looking at your daily choice and like how you're focused and where you're going, that when you make a decision to actually change a job, when you make a decision to move forward, you've looked at all the different angles, and then always know that you can reverse track if you end up not wanting to be there anymore. Like I said, I just talked to a client. I got her a job, and she is now moving on to something else and is much happier. It happens a lot that people are skipping. So hopefully what I'm really trying to share here that's coming across is like, you really need to trust yourself. Really trusting and creating that like daily choice of like, you want to change your job, great. Then you're all in. And then you're going to take the steps and the action steps. You're going to look at the blue Post-it notes to say what's keeping you from like really getting where you want to go with your job. You're going to do those yellow posts to take action items. I'm going to talk to 3 people. The pink notes are going to like what you really want to look at, like what that's going to look like. And then you start putting in action. And really reaching out to people. Your daily choice every day could be just like, I really want a new job, and I'm going to reach out to 2 people, and I'm going to really focus in on doing that. It can be a much more tactical, like finding a new job, or it can be much more like, I need to focus on, as I was doing, I need to really focus on trusting myself. And I'll give you a couple more case studies. Were there any other questions before I keep going, so I can kind of keep more elaborating? Okay. There was another case study which I found really fascinating. One of my clients, she had been at a job for many years and got offered an opportunity to interview at Google. And she'd been talking about wanting a life change, but really started talking herself out of it. I don't want to go to Google. It's too much of a fast-paced environment. I don't want to move to, it was going to actually be in California. and really talked herself out of it. And I don't want to talk anyone into doing anything, but I was like, look, you made a choice that you want to change jobs. You wanted something that wasn't as staid as a place that you're at, and you weren't ready to just kind of turn your career off. Google is a great place. I'm not saying you have to do it, but what would be the problem instead of talking yourself out of it to actually go for it and start to interview. I mean, it was just like getting her into a daily choice of like, I'm just going to interview. It doesn't mean I have to take the role. Because what we found out was she felt that if she started the process and she ended up getting the job and she turned it down, that was a no-no. She was a good girl. She didn't waste people's time. And what we really worked on every day is daily choice of like, you don't owe anyone anything. And it started creeping up. She started realizing in her own day-to-day, she was working like she owed everybody something. And what she was focusing on, which I mentioned previously, was she was focusing on the worst case scenario. I'll move, I won't meet anybody, be too fast paced. And what we got her to shift to was like focusing on what could the best case be. So my thing to her, and this is to everyone that's on the call that's going to listen to this and actively participating right now, it doesn't hurt to just pursue. It doesn't hurt. You should constantly be interviewing because it keeps you active and going, but you really want to make sure that you are participating, that you're constantly interviewing and really focusing on that best case scenario. So the best part is she went and interviewed. She loved the people. All the things she was worried about of not getting enough money, relocation. She started, really checking it out. Turns out one of her best friends from school was already living there. And it just ended up being much more positive than the negative place she got to that would have kept her from looking at it at all. And then she came back to me and she said, like, they've lowballed me a little bit on the cost. And I'm like, well, that's, don't take it personally. That's their job to make sure that they start at a certain place. So we worked on it. She was nervous because she had the good girl syndrome. About asking for more money. She's like, maybe they could take it off the table. They said they were giving me more than they already could. And I'm like, well, do you feel you're worth more? And she's like, yes, I feel I'm worth more. I've done some research. So always do your research. And she also felt that with the relocation, they weren't giving enough relocation money. So we scripted how she was going to go back to the conversation. She was just going to focus on an increased overall salary, but mention the fact that like it was going to be also a big relocation fee. And again, her stopping herself at the worst case scenario ended up being the best case scenario, because what she got was, not only did she get the more money that she wanted, she got actually a relocation fee, which was what she was really worried about. And she ended up taking the job. And now she always wanted a marquee client on her resume. And now she's going to be working at Google. And that was a very exciting process to go through with her, and really showing you that, like, if you didn't have the daily choice of like, I'm going to focus on the best case versus the worst case and keep moving forward, she would have missed that opportunity. And really working with a coach really helped her to see that. So again, as I mentioned previously, either working with a coach or working with a friend, but if you realize that you're stuck in negative thought patterns, you're going to really have to have someone help you get past that so you can open up all the pure possibilities. And then I mentioned the WeWork. So a couple of the things, just thoughts on the ways to break you out and really get you into daily choice. And these are really quick tools that I work with all my clients that you can be thinking about. But again, when you're focusing on your daily choice, you want to be looking at 3 parameters when it comes to your career: fit, challenge, money, and security. You want to be looking at it from trying to move from a worst case scenario, because we're really good at that as human beings. We go for the worst case to really focus on what the best case could be and letting yourself believe that could be. If it doesn't end up being a best case scenario, you don't have to take it. You don't owe anyone anything. Really thinking of things when it comes to daily choice, and this was a daily choice I just gave someone recently, just thinking about it as an experiment. This daily choice, this trusting. What I got myself to get to a place was, I'm going to just trust. It's an experiment. It's just a job. It's just a paper I have to write. It's just an experiment, and I'm just going to try to have fun with it. And having fun really changed my whole perspective. And I started getting data points of I can trust myself. I can see where I can take action, and that I've actually put something together that is strong, and I'm not so reliant on other people's validation. Because that's what happens a lot with corporate America. And it's a big bugaboo of mine that I've been trying to like change. But we tend to look for validation from our bosses. It's a given because your validation comes from my boss likes it, I get paid. It's Pavlov's dog, it's reward syndrome, but really trying to find that reward within yourself of like diminishing the severity of it and then experimenting with it. I'm just going to try. So it's a test and learn practice. It's my step 4, just seeing it as an opportunity to just test and move on. And from there, when you really can move from that, you're really going to be able to like take your career to the next level and take control, because you put the power back in your own hands. And one last tool I'm just going to throw in there, because I always tend to overload and give everyone more tools. But some of these will resonate, some of them won't. But when coming to your daily choice, some of it needs to come down to really recognizing what your story is. And that's an important part. You may have noticed with my logo, if you've seen it, it's a lizard has a tail. And what I noticed with that, people as human beings, we carry around these tails and we're so against giving them up. But what I noticed is that lizards can lose their tails. And when they do lose their tails, they grow another one. And they didn't need to hold on to that old one, that one that was holding them back. Maybe it was broken. It just wasn't working. So with this tail, what I want you to start really recognizing when you're looking at trying to shift your job, what story are you in? That is like so powerful. Your powerful tool is a daily choice, but a powerful way to recognize and figure out that daily choice is really looking at like, what's the story that you're in? So I'm working with one client. She's a high-powered executive and started really not trusting herself, and felt like started to feel that like she wasn't performing. And so what we did was realizing what story she was putting behind things. And this is just examples of, she would notice that when doors would close, that she would feel like, especially or if she wasn't invited to a meeting and the doors were closed, that she had somehow done something wrong. And then writing out what that story was. Why was she feeling that? Is that the true story? And then sometimes if she really felt it, like go talk to that person and say like, hey, I noticed I wasn't invited. Was there a problem with that? No, we're just focusing on this. It didn't actually need your help. Really helped her realize that like, oh, you know what? Like I'm putting a story behind the doors closed. They don't want me in. They don't see the value. Eventually, like I could be fired. Was just causing like anxiety when there wasn't really a story there. So really looking at what those stories are that we put around things, with the way that we think our coworkers think about us, the way that we think our bosses think about us, writing those out. Sometimes that's a tool I use myself. I'll just start laughing. Like, that's absurd that I think someone thinks that. And honestly, they think that. I don't want to be here. But that really focusing in on what that story is, what story, and is it substantiated, or is it just you kind of messing with your head? Because a mindset, that can change. You know, you can start getting down, you can start self-perpetuating. So you want to make sure that you're not creating a story. But once you get past that, when you can start seeing the stories, you become consciously aware of them, you can start to mitigate them. So that is another way to really start honing in on like what your daily choice is. Because the easy one for her was like, I'm just going to stop caring what everybody thinks. It wasn't as easy in the beginning, but now she's really good at it. And she's still at her current role. She's much happier because she isn't giving away so much power and validation, looking for validation from others. And she's performing better because she's not worried about what everybody thinks. So that was the last case study that I wanted to share. So we have time left. This is when I open it up to career questions. It can be based on the stuff that I've shared or just anything you want. This is like free coaching. So I'm going to open it up for anyone that might have questions. You can type it up in the chat box, or you can take yourself off mute. Anything is free game, even if you've already asked me the question before. Does anyone have any questions? right. I did get one previous to the call, which had asked what happens when you feel that your boss is taking credit for your answers and how do you deal with that? So I will address that as one of the open questions here. The information given was she didn't feel like she was being heard. She tended to have a very soft demeanor, and she would share things with her boss directly because she was looking for validation for him, and then he would go present it in the meetings. There's twofold to this that I'd wanted to share here for her to be thinking about. That was the context she gave me. One is you need to be looking at, and this is the daily choice, why do you feel you need to go to your boss first to validate your thoughts? Two is thinking about this as like, she was very upset because she felt her boss was doing it on purpose. Honestly, our bosses, and I've done this myself, you don't always remember where the idea came from. Now, I'm not giving him credit and saying that you're not right, but the twofold of like, why are you going to your boss first? And to like validate everything before you're going in front of a bigger group. You're a senior lead. You can take your ideas in and go like, I'd like to share something. You don't need that validation for your boss to say it's the right idea. And if he is taking your ideas, that's another reason why you should definitely make sure that you're going into a live group and voicing it, being heard. So one of the things we realized, and what I want to share with you with another client that I think will be helpful for this person that asked the question, is I had a client that was feeling the same thing. What we noticed was that person was reticent and shy. Oh, and I'll answer your question in a second. Reticent and shy to ask the questions. And it was a safe place to go talk with the boss. The boss was absorbing it. It turned out it was actually not something he was trying to do on purpose. And actually when she finally called him out on it, which was great, we scripted how she's going to call him out on it. Like, I noticed I'm not getting credit for my ideas. He's like, oh my gosh, I wasn't even aware of that. And started giving her a platform, which then really freaked her out because then she has to talk in front of everybody. And she wasn't quite prepared for that. So one thing that she worked with her boss was like to go to a speakers group to really learn to speak more eloquently, more with authority, and mitigated that. So that's what I wanted to share with Susan, who shared Suzanne, excuse me, who shared the previous question that was sent earlier today. You look at one, why you are going to your boss. You might have to. That might be, you might be absolutely right. He's fielding ideas. I know many bosses that are toxic that have taken other people's ideas and sold them on their own. But why you feel the need to is it making you more comfortable, but making sure that you say like, I'd like to share this idea because I want to share it with the group. Own that idea. That could be one way about it. Two is, are you having trouble like really being eloquent? Do you need to actually go to like a Toastmasters or a public speaking that would make you feel more comfortable in talking in front of other people? But breaking that apart, pulling out what the blue Post-it notes and saying what's not working about this, the yellow Post-it note, what action you're going to take about it, like I'm signing up for a Toastmasters, and the desire, like I really want to speak in front of a group, can be a very simple way to figure out how to address that. How should a manager be approached to a sideline a project that should be assigned to you given it's within your assigned region and territory? That is a really good question. So when the meeting is closed to you or not invited, you're confronted with this is an answer coming in from them. So when the meeting is closed to you, you are not invited, you confront with the person, but he's just not in the realm, but that it is, and his boss says his bottom line, how do you navigate the situation? Okay, so there are two different questions. I want to answer the first one first. So how should a manager be approached to a sidelining on project that should be assigned to you given it's within your assigned region territory? So first of all, and you can keep typing, but do you have a good relationship with this manager? Fairly decent. Do you feel you could have a conversation with them about this, that you feel you're being sidelined, or have you had a conversation with this person that you feel like you're being sidelined? I have tried. All right. So when you feel like you're being sidelined, and she gets very defensive. Okay, that tends to be what tends to happen. So I'm going to try this a little bit differently. And I don't know when the last time you had this conversation, but you can try different things. There's a formula for trying to get people not to be defensive. First of all is going to be sharing, making them right. So this boss, even just dig deep down, there must be something that maybe you admire about this boss, or at least you can fake you admire about them. I'd go into them, set up some time, and just say, you know, I've spoken to you this before, but I really admire how open you are to talking to people. I don't know if that's the right way to go in on it. We'll go in a couple different ways, or not even saying like you've gone in this before. You just say like, you know, I really like how you do this in your job, the way that you lead people, how smart you are, how analytical you are. Find something that you can get her on your side, because you're already like leveling the playing field and making her feel good. But I could use your help because you seem to be really good at these meetings, and I can't see the question, so give me 1 second. There we go. I got the bar. I can go back up for a second. You know, I really learned from you on projects, and I've noticed though that I haven't been invited or put on projects that maybe I think maybe should be in my region, my territory. And I wanted to get feedback from you on why that might be the case, because I really learned from you, and I'd like to participate in those to become stronger and a better asset to you and this company. And see what she says. You know, what you're experiencing is, and what you're trying to set up here is like, you know, you're really good on these projects. I would like to get stronger for you and the company. I'd like to learn from you. I mean, you can kind of already hear how you're setting it up, like I could learn something from you. And I'd like to really take over this, to work with you on this project and eventually take over, so I could take some pressure off your plate. I'm sure you could even say like, I'm sure you've got a lot on your plate and I'd like to do that. That could be one way in. Another one is actually very, very direct, and it might actually, depending on what this is really about, and I don't know all the details, but if you really feel you're being sidelined and you're not getting assigned, you need to find out why, and it might be even more direct approach. Like, I've tried to speak with you about this before. I know it can tend to be uncomfortable. I'm not trying to be uncomfortable. I'm actually trying to get better in my job. Like, I would like to really know, you know, why it is that you aren't assigning me to these projects, and really have that confrontation, but doing it in a way that's more permissible, less confrontation based. Of, you know, I'd really like to understand from you, these projects seem like they should be in the wheelhouse. Am I wrong with that? Are they not projects I should be working on? Because it might be coming down to like, she's scared about her job and she's trying to shine. Maybe she doesn't have enough work to do. Again, don't have all the details, but this might be a great conversation also to take even further. If you want to sign up for a free discovery call, we can even delve more into this. Oh, great. This is very helpful. I'm a direct person, but with a good read of the people, read people speaking. Yes, and that's exactly it. Like, trying to make people we all get easily threatened when confronted. But if you can set it up like, these are the things I like about you, I'm really curious about that. Saying I'm curious is always a good way. Or may I question something? Getting more permission-based opens up the conversation. And, you know, if it ends up being that she can't really tell you, you might get more information. And listening. This is really, really important. And then I'll move on to the other question. Really, really listening. It's active listening. I just talked about this in my last call. It's so important to hear what they're saying. We get in our own heads, we have an agenda, but when you open this up and she starts talking to you, I'm going to make this up just to be able to bring this to life. But, you know, you're asking me why you're not having why you're not getting these regional assignments. She might go, I've been given directive that I need to take on more of this. Oh, can you tell me more? Or I actually think that like there's an area you need to grow in. Tell me more. Have her talk about more. Like, I really always come back to like, even if it's uncomfortable, I want to grow more. I want to understand the situation. I want to be a really better asset to you. And then repeat back what she says. So what I'm hearing is, I need to work on this, this, and that. Is that correct? or what I'm hearing is you actually were given a role that you need to fully own, and I need to do X. But I always come back to like, how do I support you? How can I best grow, and go from there. And if you have any other questions, again, like I love the stuff. I'd love to get more context, and we could work on that. But that sounds like it helped you, which is great. Now I'm going to go back to the other question. So when the meeting is closed to you, you're not invited. You confront the person, but he insists it's not in your realm, but it is. And his boss says it is. Bottom line, how do you navigate the situation? Different communications, different people, basically same question as Susan. A little bit different, but basically a little bit the same. So his boss is saying it is, and he's saying it's not. Is that correct? Just, I want to make sure because I'm going to go with that. One new message. This chat box is a little bit bigger. Oh, shit. Excuse me. Correct. Okay. My boss against his boss. Okay. So this is, and his boss says, so his boss is saying it is, your boss is saying it is, and this guy underneath him is saying it's not. I just want to make sure. Okay, great. So that's exactly it. So honestly, fuck him. Oh, pardon my language. Sorry. That'll be on recording. My VA will love it. You know, it may be time for a confrontation, and I know a little bit more about you in some previous conversations we've had, but it could be coming to this. You know, I'm coming to talk to you because I'm being told by your boss and my boss that I should be in these meetings. I don't want to escalate this. I want to work it out between us, and it seems an easy way to work out is just for you to invite me to these meetings. Can you give me an understanding of why you aren't inviting me? Because you're not in line with your boss or my boss. And what you're setting up there is two things. One, I'm coming to you, but there's a little underlying, you have to find a really good way to do this. You know, there's a little underlying of like, it's going to escalate if you keep keeping me, because it's impeding my ability to do my role. And it's actually supported by our two bosses, which is powerful. Because what you might have to do actually, in the sweetest way possible, and I know we women have to do this, but like, you know, if we can't really find a resolution, what I'll do is just set up a meeting with you, my boss, your boss, me, and we'll figure out what the best way to go about this is. But what I really want to do first is work it out with you, because I enjoy working with you. And again, I'm getting into these things where you make them right and find something that you like about this. I'm assuming it's a guy, but like, you like about this guy or this woman. You know, I like how you do this. I learned from you. You're buttering them up. Yes, try to find something that feels genuine, but you're really trying to open up the door for the conversation. So, you know, that is, but you know, if you've got the support of your superiors on both sides, then it's like kind of giving him almost like a welcome shot over the bow that can actually help him, which is just, unless there's something you don't know, which is good to confront anyway, like, hey, I'm really not understanding this. I seem to be left out of these meetings. We've tried to talk about it before, but I'm being told by my boss that I should be in it, which is putting a lot of pressure on me, because I'm not just going to like bomb your meeting. And I'm being told that your boss is saying the same thing, and we really do need to work together. So I just want to figure out, like, is it something personal? You don't like me? Do I smell? You can kind of go a funny humor sense of way to kind of level the playing field. But seriously, you know, keep the conversation going. We're scripting this right now. But seriously, what is it? Because, like, you know, it's going to put pressure on both of us, especially if we're supposed to be figuring out how to work together. And I just really want to work it out with you so we don't have to actually have a meeting with both of our bosses. Did that help? Need more clarification? Yes. Okay. Because as you are the only one in there, you're going to have to find a way to get them to come to the table. But my really feeling is to have this conversation with directly, and you may need to escalate. If you've got the support of your boss and his boss saying you should be in the meetings, you shouldn't feel that that's not a conversation you can have. you have any more? Oh, your boss doesn't. CO does. Can you do? Okay, so the CO wants you there. Can you have a conversation with the COO one-on-one by your boss? You're scared of being fired by your boss? Okay. Well, you're going to go about it two ways. Either you're going to have another conversation with this guy and try to figure out why. And I do think going in there with some sense of humor of like, I don't understand. Like, the CEO says I should be in here. Why not? But if you're telling me your boss doesn't want you there, which I thought I clarified before that the boss did want you there, you might just have to resign yourself to the fact that like either you're going to have to escalate this and talk to the CEO and try to get support for this, or you have to resign yourself that you're not going to be able to change this. But I'd go about two ways. I'd have three conversations. One again with this guy. Yep. One have us, and that's how I was going to go next. One, go to this guy and just try to have another conversation, but do it in a way that's not threatening and very humorous and like, hey, what is it about? Why is this? Having another conversation with your boss. Like, I know we've talked about this before, but I really think it's keeping me from being able to do my job. I know you want to support me. You say words that you, like, who can argue? It's like, he should support you. If your boss doesn't want to support you, there's a bigger issue. And then see if you can talk to CEO. But if this is truly them marginalizing you, then that's when you start going to HR. Because if they could be very helpful in this conversation, they could give perspective, they can give you some tools. But it sounds like to me that your boss doesn't want you there. This guy is sidelining. The CEO don't want you in this like unimaginable weird place. You might need to talk to someone more specifically in the company to find out if you can make that change. But I would try one more time, more using the permissible, less defensive approach. And if it doesn't go anywhere, and I'd script it, I'd practice it with someone else, whether it's with a coach or a friend. You could actually, what I'd recommend is you could write me and how you'd want to say it. And then I'll give you thoughts back on how maybe you could soften it a bit for all three conversations. And then you could prep on how you want to go to HR. But yeah, if they're really sidelining you, that would be at that point. Because now you've had a couple conversations and what you have here is proof. So you want to script this, you want to write down what you're writing. I'm going to go to the place of like the worst case scenario could be like you have to go to HR, you write it down, you scripted this, you say, I've had these conversations, I've had them several times, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm being impeded from my job. And quite honestly, if you're the only woman in an IT and app department, it's all men, there could be a case and you might have to throw that card of like, I feel like I'm being marginalized because I'm a woman. If that's what you feel is going on, and it'll open up the conversation. But only if that's what you feel. Okay, great. I hope it doesn't get there either, but you write me where it is, and then you trust, and this is all about the daily choice. Trust yourself. As you start to script these, as you start to think about it, is this a conversation you want to have, or do you just need to put your head down and not care? That is another way to go about it. Your daily choice could be like, I just can't care about this bullshit in my company. Like, I've tried to have a couple conversations, they won't do it. You do the permissive, make it fun. I tried a different way than you've done before. That's the big thing. Don't go in like, bad out of hell. Let's try it a different way. Cause I'm sure, you've gone this, like you said, you've gone the strong route, tried a couple of different ways. And, if you really feel like it could be fired because you can't trust HR, and sometimes HR isn't the best place to talk to. Great. So you've got to really trust that, like, if you're going to, bring this up the ladder, that HR is going to be that support, and try to learn a little bit more about that. So I'll look forward to seeing all that. Before, we're a little bit over time, which is fine. Is there any other questions, any clarification, any support I might be able to give someone? Thank you guys so much for your questions. It's always interesting to get them in the chat because I feel like I'm just talking at a computer, but hopefully you found it helpful, and those that listen afterwards will find these questions helpful. And you can always email me. Again, you get a free half-hour discovery call with me, and we can get quite through a bit. All right, well, chat's not muting. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining. Since I haven't heard anything on any questions, I'm going to then stop the recording and just thank you all personally for joining.
Okay.
All right, so actually, there's one more question in this. So please, is it all right if I use your first name?
Yes.
Okay, so Deborah, tell me what your question is that you'd like to get some feedback on.
So I have I don't know if unique is the right word, kind of I guess it's probably a pretty universal question and or scenario. I feel at my current role that I'm constantly micromanaged, and having come from a job where I was previously pretty autonomous in most of my daily role, and I'm in the process right now of searching and trying to transition out of this role anyway, because I truly feel like it's not a good fit where I am. That said, I don't know, it's not like I had a boxing match with one of my managers last week, but I had a pretty intense conversation around trying to communicate my needs, and in the vein of it, or the essence of it, essentially being the way that you're trying to interact with me and manage me, frankly, is not useful, and illustrated several concrete examples of the feeling of being micromanaged.
Okay.
And subsequently, another boss came back from vacation and kind of hit the ground running with this same kind of technique and interaction. And I find now, having been in this role a little over 6 months, thankfully I just took a very brief vacation, but I'm getting to the point that I feel very exhausted of being there. I'm kind of dreading going in on Tuesday already, and it's Sunday night, and I'm just really not sure if this is a suck it up and deal with it until I can get out of there, and or another way to try to communicate to them. It's just really not effective, and I end up feeling depleted and undervalued when I'm constantly micromanaged. And had another piece of the conversation to the effect with the first manager that I observed, and of course I'm sure there's a little bit of subjective bias, that it does not appear to happen with my male counterparts at all. And he was pretty taken aback by that, to the point he seemed almost embarrassed that he was called out about that. So I'm just wondering what your feedback is for me on how to handle the micromanaging.
Yeah, I mean, you could have another conversation, but maybe approach it from, I really see how you work with others, and I know you're trying to give me constructive feedback. Here's the best way to motivate me. Because you're performing well, correct, in your job?
Yeah, and that's one of the really frustrating pieces, is that even though now we're a little over halfway into the month, my metrics are still on what we call our leaderboard. And so when I told him that, I said, I'm really struggling with this. You guys find the one negative thing, and I feel like you rip me apart for it, versus any kind of acknowledgement for what I'm doing, not to the extent that I shouldn't work on my weaknesses. And the way that you're approaching me does not, that's essentially what I said, does not make me motivated to be here at all.
So did you say that?
Performance is, I'm sorry?
Did you say that?
Yes, I said that to him.
That's awesome. But you're performing, so they want to keep you, is it happening ad hoc? They just start talking to you? It's not scheduled?
Right. It's so I work in a retail environment, and it'll be as blatant as okay, let's go to the back and talk about this. And so I'm pulled off the sales floor, and it just feels like a little mini lecture. And I've tried to be very observant of what's going on, like I said, with my other coworkers. And I just really feel like it's this targeted point of just every little detail is completely micromanaged, and or the emphasis is always on the negative. And so it feels like it's starting to really wear on my, like, I just feel very defensive and closed off because the conversation is always just like, oh, well, what do I suck at today?
Yeah.
Like,
So
I'm just always kind of braced and prepared for like that aspect of it.
yeah, there's a couple things that you're gonna have to do with this. One is you're gonna have to stop caring so much. That's just a given. And it's hard because like I work at I have someone that I work with that can be negative to everybody and they don't know they're doing it. So the more that you can try not to take it personally, they're going to become more conscious of it. You can still voice it, but they're not conscious that they're doing it. And it could definitely be because you're a woman on the floor. I don't know that for certain, but if you can try not to take it so personally, that would help. That being said, what you can do is start to train them a little bit. You can even do it in a joking manner, like, okay, before you can give me any negative piece of information, you have to give me one positive. And I'm going to tell them, like, smile at them and like, I'm not listening until you tell me one positive thing that I'm doing, and start to train them. Also, you might be like, well, you could say to them, and these are all options. Some of them may be right, some of them may be wrong. I'm just throwing them out there for you to think about and figure out what's the right way to go about it. You could also then just say, what I've started to notice is that when I'm getting interrupted on the floor, I think it's hurting my sales. I could be stronger. So what I would like to have happen is if you want to give me feedback, which I'm always open to, let's make sure it's during pre-described times that we schedule. And the reason why I specifically said it's hurting sales, because you're in a retail environment, that will get them to listen. Well, we definitely don't want to hurt our sales because it hurts us. So you could do that. The other area to think about is like, it might be a conversation. We were talking about it just earlier. It might be a conversation for HR. If you really feel that they are treating you differently than the men, and now you've laid that out, it's important that you might need to set precedent with that. So there's like 3 areas to it. One is like not giving so much power to these guys because like you're badass. You're like doing really great. You're doing your numbers, and helping them understand that it's impacting your ability to actually do the top sales that they're looking for. Like it can have that kind of negative impact. And then obviously keep it up. But and then 3, it might be something like it's and you already said you're looking for work. But trying to
Right.
might have a conversation with HR, and then try to find a way to like make it a game. Like, okay, instead of like, oh God, here it comes. You're like, I wonder what they're going to say now that's not important. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's really not.
Yeah, I did. Agreed. I did tell the other manager at the end of the conversation last week, I said, I will work on a way for you to communicate with me that is effective for me, because I don't really know at this point to tell you because it all just feels so negative.
Yeah. And what did he say to that?
I think he was receptive to that, just in the sense that it didn't seem like I was blaming him for everything, but I don't think he saw the conversation coming, so I think he was pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, so then you can have like a much more structured conversation, and when you're going to go through, when you have the next time with them, like, this is what I'm going to own. I'm making this up, so this might not be right, but like, I'm going to own that I'm sensitive. I'm going to own that like maybe I take criticism really too strong. That being said, like what I need, but like that being said, and I'm not sure you need to say that, but like just setting up the context of like, but that's who I am, and I'm actually performing really well. And what I would even make me even a better earner and a higher earner is to give me positives. I'm open to criticism, but you got to start with something positive. Like, what am I doing well? And it's got to be scheduled time, not on the floor because it sets me off. But I don't thrive in that kind of environment. And maybe that makes me different from all the other guys. And I would definitely say that way, like it makes me different from all the other guys, because what you're doing is setting precedent, but it's important to have that conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So then if there's anything else, we will end the recording, and thank you all for joining. The recording will come out separately. And again, anyone that's participating in the call that I haven't worked with again before is up for a free half-hour call. Send us an email at info@loamlife.com, and thank you for your time.